Hey, it's Alex from BoardGameCo, and if it isn't apparent by all the board games behind me that remotely smack of anything to do with pirates, this is another Dead Reckoning video. Now, I didn't plan on doing this initially, but I had enough people ask for it that I figured, you know what, let's put something out. But it's not a trashing video. It's not a, this is the worst, this is terrible, how dare anyone do whatever. And I should probably give some context here, if you don't know what's going on yet. Dead Reckoning is a Kickstarter by AEG that is it's a game that I loved. It's a game that I had a chance to play. I was super excited about it, and yesterday I sadly canceled my pledge. Now I will note, it's always possible I'll jump back in. I know that they are already addressing the comments, the feedback, and they may or may not be able to do something to pull myself and others back in. And also, don't get me wrong, it is doing tremendously well. It is doing, I mean, it's pulling 700k right now. It's going to cross 750 easily, maybe 800 by the time everything's over. This is a success. It is the furthest thing from a smoking train wreck. They are doing a great job. But it's also become a bit, not a huge, a bit of a PR nightmare. While the pledge levels are going up, the backers are going down, and a big part of that is people are unhappy. And speaking for myself, I'm not thrilled either. I mean, I understand that a company has to do what a company has to do, and I respect that. I'm totally fine with whatever decisions go into a company pricing something, doing whatever. We're all adults, and we all have to act accordingly. Now, as someone who liked the game, as someone who was a big fan of the game, I was willing to stay in for a while, but in the end I decided to cancel partially because of you guys, because I run a channel where I talk about the value proposition, and even though for myself I'm usually willing to overlook that when it comes to a game I like, when I know I like a game, when there's not a risk on whether this is a game for me or not, and I don't have to worry as much about whether I have to sell it, lose money, this, that, or whatever, I'm usually more willing to make decisions. But at the same time, I know that most of you haven't, and I felt that I needed to make a statement with my actions, both to my audience, to you guys, as well as to AEG. I can't push back against the value proposition being offered if I am still a backer. And I struggled with it for a while. I mean, a while is relative, but for a good day I struggled back and forth of, but I want it, but I liked it, and I do love the game, make no mistake, and I 100% will pick this up at some point, likely in the secondhand market, but I just can't be a backer right now. And that hub of activity, of pushback, is all centered around how much the game costs versus how much people think it should cost. And so the reason I'm doing this video is not to just dump all over AEG, not in the slightest. And AEG, if you're watching, I mean, it's the same thing I've said multiple times now. I wish you guys much success. I understand you have to do what you have to do. I understand that there are often decisions and possibly costs behind the scenes that I'm not privy to, and that's okay. There's no harm, no foul, but this is a video designed to be both for myself, for you, for AEG, for my audience, as to why I believe this went south the way it did. And again, south is relative. Campaign's still doing well. Because I know for a fact that when you compare this to other games coming up, active games or whatever, when you compare Dead Reckoning to Too Many Bones is a $200 price point to get in on that, and people seem to love Too Many Bones, so why is this different? Lizard Wizard, a game on Kickstarter right now, at the premium copy, premium edition of the game, costs $80 plus shipping to get all the extras or whatever it is, and that's not nearly for the same level of mass exploration or whatever, or pirate activity that Dead Reckoning has. And yet I don't think that's going to see anywhere near the pushback or outrage. In fact, I might back it myself. We'll get to that. Merchants of the Dark Road was 125, maybe more. I can't remember exactly. The all-in was like close to 150 bucks or whatever it is. Did that have more content than Dead Reckoning? Is that what happened there? Why is that not getting pushed back? Why is Dead Reckoning different? Why is Dead Reckoning a different level of frustration on behalf of the audience that other campaigns don't? And honestly, I think, not to toot my own horn, but I think this video is worth watching for anyone running a Kickstarter campaign and having to take into account the differences of what audiences expect and how that translates into the success of your project. Now again, I have to say this again, I have to repeat it. This is not a smoking train wreck of a campaign. This campaign is doing well, but there is a PR hub of activity that probably does need to be managed. At the end of the day, over time, people will push back on different things, and People have different things they care about. That's true. I mean, we've talked about this in the past. I give CMON a free pass on a lot of things that I disagree with because I think they deliver an excellent value. I think they deliver a ton of content for what you buy, and that's what I care about as a backer. Other people often care about other things. It could be there are many companies that will charge far more, but they are completely respectful to the backers in every sense and treat the backers like family, and other people care more about that. Everyone will have different things they care about, and you have to figure out as a company how to manage both your audience's expectations, how to manage the people who are spending money, as well as how to manage the general perception of yourself as a company. So, with that 5-minute interlude of all the backstory going on, let's jump into the 5 reasons why I believe Dead Reckoning is different, why I believe it's different than Too Many Bones, Lizard Wizard, Merchants of the Dark Road, and dozens of other games that I believe I could point to as being also expensive, also above what we'd want, and yet people pay it and are happy to do so. So the first one, and there's not much AEG can do about this, is they are an established publisher. People have a different perception and expectation, unfairly perhaps, I'm not even going into the fairness of this, a different perception and expectation when it is an established publisher. When the publisher is someone who has been in business, as AEG says on their campaign page so nicely and proudly, they have been in business for 20 years. They have retail distribution models. They have warehouses full of games. This is an established publisher, and people expect better pricing, for one. They expect better pricing. It's, again, I'm totally fine saying this is unfair, and maybe there's something you can do with it, which is why I'm starting with it, because I think this is the least of the reasons. But they expect they expect more efficiency, less overhead per game, less people that need to be paid with 1 or 2 successful games. They have an established framework of Smash Up, of Mystic Vale, Dead Reckoning, Dead Reckoning's just out, Edge of Darkness. They have dozens and dozens of games, Mariposas, there's dozens and dozens of games under their belt as a publishing company. And so people expect that they have the ability to deliver a better price. When you have a small publisher, again using Lizard Wizard as an example here, when you have a smaller publisher with fewer games under their belt that might need to factor in more of the profit per game to literally paying people salaries, people tend to be a little bit more understanding. Again, perhaps unfairly, not even going into that, that is what it is. But there is a different perception of what people expect from an established publisher, and one of those things, which we'll touch on later, is additionally the retail availability. The lack of retail availability is one of the things, which we'll get to in a second, that is also going to hurt AEG. Which brings us to point number 2, surprise, surprise, retail availability. Dead Reckoning as a campaign is not going to be available in retail. I don't think they said it as a firm commitment. They're like, it's probably not going to be available in retail. They are what they are. And so likely your best bet of getting this game is either in this Kickstarter, the secondhand market, or in a future Kickstarter where it will likely be more expensive, which is hard to say considering it's decently expensive as it is. And so that means that every decision happening in this campaign is grounded on FOMO. It's grounded on fear of missing out. It's grounded on backers being unable and unwilling to say to themselves, you know what, that's it, I'm out, I'll get it when it hits, insert game store name here. And that's not, AEG's problem, but it does mean, again, perhaps irrationally, that people tend to push their frustration at this concept onto the publisher. When the game is available at retail, there's a certain amount of ownership we have. There's a certain amount of blame we place on ourselves. You know what? I know I paid more than I should have. I know I probably could have just waited, but I want the game. I'll justify it. There's a certain amount of ownership that we have over that decision. Now, I do believe that same level of ownership should extend to a game that is not available at retail, which is why I'm canceling my pledge, because of that ownership. But irrationally, there's less ownership. There's more frustration, because you can't even say to yourself, you know what, I'll wait till retail. Every decision that you have to make throughout that campaign, every decision is predicated on the idea that it will be harder to get. You might not be able to get it later, and you have to factor that in. And so there's a degree of upsetness, of anger, of frustration at the publisher that not only are they not putting this game available at retail, but now they're pricing it in ways that I'm not happy with. They're giving me options I don't like, and I have to make a decision now amongst multiple decisions that I don't like in order to get this game. And so that lack of retail availability takes that decision that backers, that we have to make, and it pushes it it pushes that onto the publisher. And it shouldn't, by the way. Again, I believe in ownership. I believe in ownership of your actions, of your decisions. I believe that we, as responsible adults, as responsible consumers, have to vote with our wallet. And if you are still backing this campaign while complaining about the price, then I sympathize. I was doing that yesterday. But we're part of the problem. Alternatively, vote with your wallet and move on, because that is something that you need to do as a responsible consumer. But again, the rational aspect of blame aside, it does make sense that people will place that blame on AEG. It does make sense that people will place that blame on whatever publisher that is pushing this degree of FOMO. And this is something that Command gets flack for all the time as well. When you run things around a premise of fear of missing out, there will be people who feel like you are forcing them into a bad decision. There's less ownership of that action. There's less ownership of, you know what, I want the shiny, I'll overpay. Instead, it's, you're forcing me to overpay because I want the shiny, and that's your fault. Again, irrationally. And it doesn't help things that AEG has a $5 access to the Pledge Manager. Meaning, I am all for raising that access, by the way. Something I plan on talking about in another video is the whole access of Pledge Manager, the dollar pledge. It's a whole topic for another day that I've been saying for 3-4 months now, but I'll get to it eventually. But while I am for that move, while I think it actually makes sense to increase the barrier, both for the publisher and for the consumer to a degree, I think it makes sense to increase that barrier. $5 access to a Pledge Manager is not often done. It's usually, even when you see it upgraded, it's like $2, $3, whatever it is. $5 is a decent barrier to jump in. If you want to potentially unlock this game, you have to pay $5 now, and then you can decide later, but we have your $5. It's more than $1. It's 5 times more than $1, shockingly enough. And so that doesn't help the perception that this is a campaign run on fear of missing out. Even access to the Pledge Manager is significantly higher than what you're used to seeing for a game that's not available for retail. That is a huge percentage, a huge aspect of this campaign that is relying on the retail availability or the fear of missing out and pushing consumers into decisions that they don't like, and they in turn place that blame on AEG, and they in turn respond in the comments and post on whatever forums and shout to the clouds or whatever it is. Which brings us to reason 3. Unnecessary items in the pledge. And this is a smaller one, but it factors into the frustration. Which is in the all-in pledge that they announced. In the all-in pledge, we have promotional cards that are for other games. Additionally, in the regular legendary pledge, there's an extra ship that's in the game. Now, people don't mind extras. They don't mind it at all. But if you're sitting there harping on the idea that this is the best price you can give for a game that looks like it should have a better price point, having unnecessary extras is a huge no-no. An absolutely huge no-no. You cannot go on and on about your bottom line. You cannot go on and on about how hard it is for you to be able to make a living, but then throw in extras that nobody cares about. It doesn't sit well with the consumer. Now, there are plenty of campaigns I've been in that I've gotten extras I don't care about, but when you're not complaining about the value proposition, it's easier. And I get promotional cards, by the way. Promo cards for sure. I get that they're cheap. I get that they're pennies on the dollar, but first of all, you're charging $7 for them, so you have to factor that into your decision. And then secondly is, it just doesn't look well. It doesn't sit well for the game. If it's meant to be advertising for yourself, it's meant to be advertising for, oh, I have this promo card, let me get another game, then great, throw them in for free. Don't charge people for your advertising. And if it's meant to be a cost, then you can't simultaneously charge $7 while then telling everyone else, but no, it's going to be free and it barely costs us anything. And the same thing with that ship, that extra ghost ship. I think it's nice, I think it's cool. But when you're running a campaign where people are frustrated with the value proposition on the table, maybe don't have unnecessary extras and instead reduce the cost to the backers. Those are decisions you're going to have to make and decisions you're going to have to juggle, and it does increase the level of frustration that people have. When you buy these other games, Merchants of the Dark Road, Lizard Wizard, Too Many Bones, whatever, any other game that I didn't mention, when people are already paying a lot, they don't want things that they don't perceive as an added value. Which brings us to point number 4. There is no ideal pledge level in this campaign. There's none. There's no pledge level in this campaign that makes sense for the backer, that gives them a perfect option. And so all the pledge levels in this campaign are basically forcing people to choose between multiple options that don't make a lot of sense. Now, to be clear, I'm talking about myself and the vocal others who are frustrated. I'm sure there are a lot of people who are watching this who are saying, what are you talking about? This pledge level was perfect for me, or that all-in was great. Totally fine. But for people frustrated, there's no pledge level that makes sense. Let me break that down. So to begin with, we have the $79 pledge versus the $109 Legendary Captain pledge. Now the problem is, that Legendary Captain pledge gives you an additional $88 worth of MSRP, which MSRP is another conversation, but it gives you an additional $88 worth of content for a $30 upgrade, which is a good deal. I mean, if you don't get that Legendary pledge, you're missing out on Saga 1, you're missing out on custom sleeves, you're missing out on the Ghost Ship, which is the Ghost Ship, and you're missing out on a whole bunch of Sea Dogs. For $30, I can't possibly, and I said this in my first video, I can't possibly imagine doing the $79 pledge. Sure, you save $30, but $40 with shipping, but the amount of content you're missing out on, I mean, it seems worth it. It just seems like a good deal. $79 versus $109 was a good deal, which eliminates the $79 pledge as a pledge that really makes sense. You can back it. Of course you can back it. You'll be happy with your game. It's all good. This is a great game. I'm going to say that again. It's a great game. But the $79 versus $109 doesn't really make sense. The problem is, once you're at the $109 pledge, your options now, if you want that second, because you now have Saga 1. You have Saga 1, which means of course you should get Saga 2. It's one thing to say, I just want the base game. It's another thing to say, I want all the expansions. But it's a third thing to say, I want the base game and the expansion you pushed on me that's literally called Saga 1 and Saga 2, and by your own admission has gameplay elements that are interweaving, but I'll just take one of those. That's frustrating for a lot of people. For many, they're fine with it. Who cares? It's all good. I mean, I just get Saga 1, I'm not even going to play that. But for many others, it's frustrating. But now your options to get Saga 2 are paying the full $45 MSRP, which is just frustrating, or to go all in on the $179 deal and get a whole bunch of things you may not have cared about. Maybe you like the metal coins, but maybe those crates and barrels, who really cares? And those promo cards, who cares for sure? So you're basically, any option you pick feels like an inefficient option. It feels like an option that is not catered towards giving you choice, but is rather pushing you into decisions you don't want to make. And that's not ideal. It's not great. I think that CMON is a great example again. CMON gets a lot of flack for all their add-ons that they push, that they, by the end of their campaign, it's a $300 all in. But CMON always has a base pledge that delivers an astounding value without any of these tricks. I mean, CMON does a lot of tricks. I'm not giving CMON any free passes here. But they do a lot of tricks in their campaign to push FOMO, to push whatever. But they don't give you a bad value pledge to push you into the higher value pledge that gives you one expansion, but then everything else is wrapped into that. This feels more, to me at least, this feels more frustrating, more FOMO pushing or whatever it is, than a CMON campaign, which is saying something. It's really saying something, because again, I love CMON, and I think a lot of their stuff, especially when CMON, you get those, 2 minis for $12, whatever it is, it feels overpriced, and it, comparatively speaking to a lot of other content, it is. But those feel like complete extras. It doesn't feel like Saga 1 and Saga 2, they gave you one at a great deal, and the other one's locked behind 2 bad decisions. And so the fact that there's no ideal pledge level, there's no ideal win, and there's no option to walk back and say, you know what, it is what it is, I'll wait till retail, that's frustrating to backers. And finally, point number 5, and I think this is the biggest one. Now, this is something that was brought up by a lot of people in the campaign comments. Successful Geek, who I know is a viewer here, as well as he's in the comments actively there, he mentioned this, he brought this up. But Successful Geek, as well as myself and others, have commented on this, which is one of the biggest problems in this campaign, is the expectations that were set. At the end of the day, the expectations that you set will be a big distinguishing factor between yourself and others. It will be a big factor in why people are upset, when they are upset, and how they lash out about it. And that's unfortunate, but it is what it is. I'm not giving a free pass to anyone who says anything disrespectful. You can disagree, you can drop your pledge, you can do whatever you want, but treat people the way you want to be treated. It's a huge thing. I'm sitting here basically telling AEG I totally disagree with them, but I wish them all the best. And treat people the way you want to be treated. Side tangent. Expectations were set very incorrectly in this campaign. To begin with, we have Edge of Darkness. And Edge of Darkness was significantly cheaper for more content, bigger box, more stuff going on in there. And it's possible. It's entirely possible they lost money in Edge of Darkness. And honestly, if that's the case, own it. Say so. Say we didn't anticipate how expensive things were, or manufacturing costs have risen. If there's a difference between Edge of Darkness and this, make a statement. Don't let people be upset about the comparison, and don't worry about your perception as a company. Make a statement as to, I know Edge of Darkness was X, we will not be able to offer that same value here. Make it day one. Set expectations, because otherwise people are upset. Secondly, is in the pledges on the sidebar, It says in the Legendary Pledge, you get access to all content unlocked in the Daily Discovery. And they nitpicked on the words here, but that simply just wasn't true. You didn't get access to all content unlocked in the Daily Discovery. You got access to all content that was unlocked for your pledge in the Daily Discovery. And it's... I kind of hear it from both sides. I understand that at the end of the day, it's just a wording mistake, but fix that as soon as possible and realize that you have now just added to the expectations that you're setting that people will get things. Number 3 is the Daily Discovery itself was, I believe, a train wreck, sadly. Day one of the Daily Discovery, they unlocked $62 worth of MSRP in the Daily Discovery. Boom, here's your pirate ship, here's your Saga 1 expansion, here's a bunch of sea dogs, enjoy. And then there's like this whole train of like 25 listing. Every day there's going to be an update to the Daily Discovery. And that builds an expectation of more content. Content that was eked out in tiny amounts. Here's a few more sea dogs. Here's another tile. There was nothing. And then to top it off, they have in the Daily Discovery, they have, you know, here's a video about the game in the Daily Discovery. Ooh, here's an add-on that you can buy in the Daily Discovery. The Daily Discovery, in my opinion, was a train wreck of setting expectations and then not following through with them. And I think that, possibly more than anything else in this campaign, caused a lot of this this furor, of this outrage of look what I thought I was getting versus look what I actually am getting. Nemesis did this great. Nemesis in their campaign, they day one they unlocked a bunch of stuff and they said, by the way guys, just so you know, it's not always going to be a lot of stuff. Sometimes we'll have big, sometimes we'll have small. Make a statement. If you're dropping $62 worth of MSRP in the Daily Discovery on day one, make a statement at that time, by the way, just so you know, let's set expectations accordingly. Because that, for myself and for others, set expectations that there would be a lot more content added to this game. That would start off day one as a, hey, it's okay, it's all fine, whatever it is, we'll see how it plays out. It didn't really, that vision, that promise never materialized in this campaign. And then secondly, or fourthly, I don't know, but let's talk about expectations again. MSRP is another one that you can't dismiss it. They are using MSRP as a reference point, but they're using it both ways, to both jack up the price, but then also to undermine the price. And what do I mean by that? The expansions, the sagas, are $45 MSRP add-ons that they are charging $45 for. So they are literally charging full MSRP to get those expansions. But the first one, the first saga, that's different, because a $30 upgrade from the basic pledge, the deckhand pledge, to the legendary pledge will get you $88 worth of MSRP content. Again, $30 upgrade gets you $88 for that first thing. But if you want Saga 2, well, now you have to pay $45 for it, or upgrade to the all-in. It is, again, a smack in the face of what expectations are, what people think will happen, versus what actually happened. Saga 1 was bundled into this amazing price that was totally makes sense, you should totally upgrade. Saga 2 locked behind a full paywall of $45. This entire campaign, in my opinion, for the reasons I broke down, it's an established publisher, the retail availability or lack thereof, in addition to $5 access to the pledge manager, the unnecessary items that you are being basically forced to buy while they are talking about how they can't achieve the margins they want, the no pledge level that really makes sense, and finally, and most importantly, setting expectations that failed. Those are my reasons why this is different than another game that is also potentially overpriced for the content. Those are the reasons why I personally have dropped my pledge unless and until I see a change. And I'm not optimistic, by the way. I think best case scenario, we're probably looking at some sort of token compromise of, you know what, you're right, we'll give you access to the Saga 2 at $35 if you want it. I think you're looking at some sort of halfway compromise, which might have been enough initially, but once there are people upset, once there's outrage, it takes more to calm them down. It takes more to get them back to a baseline. And I think that best case scenario, we're looking at a token compromise here. At the end of the day, I wish AEG much success. I think their campaign is doing tremendously well. For anyone who's backing Dead Reckoning, I think you're getting a great game out of it. I plan on picking up a copy myself in the secondary market at some point, as of now at least. I think the value is probably still there, not as high as it should be. I think you probably will lose a little money. I think it's overpriced for the content you're getting, and that will reflect itself in the secondary market. But if enough people love the game out the way I did, then maybe not. That value might hold if everyone loves their copy, and that's a factor you have to take into account. For myself, I chose to vote with my wallet today, and this is my video explaining why I think this is different than whatever next campaign I choose to back, even though it may not be worth it. These are the reasons why I believe it's different. Until next time, I am Alex Radcliffe from BoardGameCo. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you agree, disagree, please let me know down below. If there's any of these potential reasons that you think are just not accurate, let me know in the comments down below. Tell me why it's different. Tell me why I'm wrong. Or alternatively, add your own reasons. Why do you think this is different? Why are you so upset about this campaign? Or maybe you're just not upset and you're pretty happy with everything that's going on. Either way, at the end of the day, they're just board games. And I don't mean to say that in a dismissive, undermining tone. I love board games. I am all up in arms. This is the drama of my life. But thankfully, the biggest drama in my life right now is Dead Reckoning and their campaign. And so all things considered, they're just board games. And there are plenty others. There's Jamaica, there's Tobago, there's Empire's Age of Discovery, a game that if you haven't played it, you should go out and get that game. It's cheaper than the All-In Pledge of Dead Reckoning. That is an excellent, excellent game. It's not really piratey, but it's still a great game. Rum and Bones is a totally different experience. I wouldn't even go there. And then, of course, Merchants and Marauders, which is a game that is great. Merchants and Marauders is a great game that is worth checking out. Just buy the base game, see where you can find it, give it a shot. It will give you that same feel that Dead Reckoning does in a very different package, a very different gameplay package. And then lastly, there's Tiny Epic Pirates. I shouldn't say lastly. There's Tiny Epic Pirates, there's Rum and Bones, Endeavor Age of Sail. There are many games out there to pick from. And one of them is bound to bring you a little fun. Until next time, I am Alex Radcliffe from BoardGameCo. You can like down below if you like this content, if you enjoy these types of videos, these insights into, not really insights, opinions about the industry or whatnot. Subscribe down below, comment, share, and have a good one.